In the early 2000s, she was the undisputed breakout star of one of television's biggest sci-fi franchises. Millions watched her every week. Magazine covers plastered her face across newsstands worldwide, and she possessed the kind of instant fame most actors spend a lifetime chasing. Then, almost as quickly as she arrived, she pulled back from the Hollywood machine and vanished from the spotlight. So what actually happened to Jolene Blalock, the actress who played Sub-Commander T'Pol? When Star Trek Enterprise premiered in September 2001, the entire weight of a billion-dollar sci-fi legacy rested on the shoulders of its cast. Set a full century before Captain Kirk ever stepped onto the bridge of the original Enterprise, the series aimed to show humanity's messy, awkward first steps into deep space. But among the human crew of test pilots, engineers, and wide-eyed explorers, the show required an anchor, a presence to embody the strict logic, stoicism, and quiet superiority of Vulcan culture. Enter Jolene Blalock as Sub-Commander T'Pol. Stepping into a Vulcan role isn't just taking a job. It's entering a minefield of fan expectations. Ever since Leonard Nimoy defined the archetype as Spock in 1966, the Vulcans had been the emotional and intellectual spine of the entire franchise. To miscalculate that performance meant immediate rejection by one of the most passionate fan bases on the planet. Yet from the moment Blalock appeared on screen, she didn't just meet the bar. She grabbed the entire series by the collar. Playing a Vulcan requires a deceptively difficult balance. If you play it completely flat, the character becomes a wooden, boring piece of exposition delivery. If you show too much emotion, you break the fundamental rules of the lore. Blalock mastered the delicate space right in the middle. She gave T'Pol a tightly coiled underlying tension, a sense that behind her flat vocal cadence and icy stare was a mind constantly working to evaluate, endure, and quietly tolerate the chaotic humans around her. As the first officer serving alongside Captain Jonathan Archer, played by Scott Bakula, T'Pol quickly evolved into the true emotional core of the series. The response from sci-fi fans and industry critics was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Blalock became the breakout star of the network, earning widespread acclaim for bringing depth, dignity, and unexpected warmth to a character explicitly designed not to show any. Her performance earned her the Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actress on Television. In the eyes of millions of viewers tuning in every week, T'Pol wasn't just another crew member on the ship. She was the undisputed reason to watch. However, being the undeniable star of a major network drama in the early 2000s came with a very specific, aggressive, promotional playbook. Network executives at UPN were desperate to drive ratings among younger demographics, and they leaned heavily into marketing Blalock's physical appearance. She was splashed across the covers of high-profile men's magazines, quickly landing on international Hot 100 lists and being framed by the media, primarily as a global sex symbol. This push extended directly onto the screen, leading to some of the most debated and polarizing design choices in modern Star Trek history. Unlike the standard fleet uniforms worn by her human crewmates, T'Pol was outfitted in a series of custom, skin-tight catsuits that highlighted her former modeling background. Even more notorious were the show's infamous decontamination chamber scenes, where the camera angles and lingering shots left zero doubt about their real purpose, bringing unabashed, provocative eye candy to primetime network television. Behind the scenes, Blalock found herself navigating a tricky, frustrating tightrope. While she remained fiercely dedicated to her craft and loved the narrative potential of her character, she was never afraid to express her discomfort with cheap titillation. In interviews during and after the show's run, she candidly criticized the studio's tendency to prioritize provocative outfits and forced romance over genuine character development. Despite the studio's heavy-handed marketing tactics, Blalock's talent ensured that T'Pol transcended the eye candy trope. Over the course of 4 seasons, she delivered a rich, compelling character arc that tackled Vulcan addiction, deep cultural prejudice, grief, and the quiet agony of suppressed emotion. When Star Trek Enterprise was abruptly canceled by UPN in the spring of 2005, it signaled the closing of an entire 18-year continuous chapter of televised Star Trek. For Jolene Blalock, the cancellation brought a complex mix of relief, frustration, and sudden freedom. While many actors exiting a major franchise immediately throw themselves into the brutal machine of pilot season to secure their next steady television paycheck, Blaylock chose a completely different path. To understand her immediate retreat from the spotlight, you have to look at how the series ended. Blaylock was never an actor who gave canned, studio-approved soundbites. As a lifelong fan of original Star Trek lore, she cared deeply about the narrative integrity of the show. When the series finale, titled These Are the Voyages, was delivered to the cast, Blaylock was appalled. The episode notoriously sidelined the Enterprise cast in their own series finale, framing the entire story as a historical holodeck simulation being viewed years later by Star Trek: The Next Generation characters. Blaylock didn't hide her anger behind publicists. In press interviews, she publicly labeled the finale appalling and insulting to both the cast and the dedicated fanbase. In an industry where actors are expected to quietly smile and thank studio executives regardless of script quality, her raw honesty was revolutionary. And in traditional studio circles, it was viewed as a risky move. Once the set was struck, Blaylock stepped away from the traditional Hollywood hustle. She made a conscious decision not to spend her life pounding the pavement for roles that reduced her to the same narrow, sexualized archetypes. Equally surprising to fans was her deliberate absence from the lucrative Star Trek convention circuit. For most franchise alumni, fan conventions represent a guaranteed, highly profitable revenue stream. Yet Blaylock virtually disappeared from public fan gatherings after 2005. Her co-star John Billingsley later revealed on a podcast, "I would be surprised if she attended STLV. I think back in the day, she had some experiences at conventions that weren't delightful. And she is married to a cajillionaire, so if you're not going for money, you're going for delight." Billingsley added, "There's obviously so much hunger to see Jolene again. I would love to see Jolene again. She's disappeared from our lives. We miss her." While public perception often framed Blaylock as having completely dropped out of acting after Enterprise ended, her actual filmography tells a much more nuanced story. She didn't retire overnight. Instead, she selectively pivoted toward specific television, guest spots, and independent feature films. On the television side, sci-fi audiences immediately welcomed her into another major universe. She made a memorable 2-episode appearance on Stargate SG-1 as Ishta, the fierce leader of a group of female Jaffa warriors. She also stepped into high-profile broadcast television guest roles in CSI, Miami, and House MD. Expanding into fantasy, she took on a recurring villainous arc in Legend of the Seeker as Sister Nikki, a powerful, dark sorceress. In feature films, she co-starred in the 2005 neo-noir thriller Slow Burn alongside Ray Liotta, followed by the 2007 horror thriller Shadow Puppets. In 2008, she embraced military sci-fi by starring as Captain Lola Beck in Starship Troopers 3 Marauder. Her last on-screen credit was the 2017 television movie A Man for Every Month. To fully appreciate why Blaylock was able to step away from the relentless churn of Hollywood, you have to look at the remarkable life she quietly built away from the camera. The turning point arrived during the peak of her Star Trek fame. While filming the second season of Enterprise in Los Angeles, she met Michael Rapino, a Canadian music executive who would soon become the CEO of Live Nation Entertainment. In a move that showcased the same bold energy she brought to her on-screen roles, Blaylock proposed to Rapino during a vacation in Jamaica in April 2003. Just days later, they were married on the beach. As Blaylock's time on Enterprise wound down in 2005, Rapino's corporate trajectory was skyrocketing. Almost overnight, the couple transitioned into one of the most powerful duos in global entertainment. Together, they raised 3 sons, Ryder, River, and Rexton, choosing to give their children a stable, grounded upbringing far removed from the echo chamber of celebrity culture. Her financial security also allowed her to channel energy toward philanthropic global initiatives. Together with her husband, she co-founded the Rapino Foundation, a nonprofit organization focused on tackling systemic global poverty and empowering women and children in developing nations. This shift in priority explains why she felt no urge to fight for scraps in Hollywood pilot seasons. While many former TV leads find themselves trapped taking mediocre guest spots simply to pay bills, Blaylock had complete freedom. If a script didn't spark genuine excitement or fit into her family schedule, she could simply say no without a second thought. That kind of autonomy is the ultimate luxury in show business. In 2024, Blaylock surprised the franchise fanbase by making an unexpected return to the Star Trek universe. She provided the voice for an alternate universe version of T'Pol in an episode of the animated comedy series Star Trek: Lower Decks. The cameo was widely celebrated by longtime fans who saw it as a full-circle moment. Lower Decks creator Mike McMahan revealed that he had written her a personal letter explaining how important her work was to him, and rather than going through an agent, he reached out directly. McMahan said, "I wrote her a letter explaining how important her work on Enterprise was to me not only as a fan, but also as a writer of Star Trek." Notably, Blaylock requested to be credited simply as Jolene in the episode. She had turned down other Star Trek appearances in the past, but McMahan's approach and the quality of the script convinced her to return. In September 2021, Blaylock also delighted the sci-fi world by making a surprise appearance at Paramount's official Star Trek Day celebration in Los Angeles, walking the red carpet alongside former franchise peers. Her former castmates, including Scott Bakula, Dominic Keating, and John Billingsley, have consistently spoken of her with immense respect and warmth. They remember an actress who showed up to set every single day prepared, focused, and ready to elevate every scene she was given. When you look back at the trajectory of Jolene Blaylock's career, her story isn't a cautionary tale about the fleeting nature of Hollywood fame. Instead, it stands as a masterclass in personal sovereignty. She stepped onto sci-fi's biggest stage, delivered an iconic performance that earned her a permanent place in pop culture history, called out studio nonsense when she saw it, and then walked away to build a life rich with family, purpose, and philanthropy. In the end, Jolene Blaylock didn't get lost in Hollywood. She just built a real life outside of it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite sci-fi icons. Thanks for watching.